Hello, and a very warm welcome to this edition of Dad's Unlimited podcast. And today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Greg Glangola. Greg, very warm welcome to the Dad's Unlimited show. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Dad's Unlimited.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Phil. Yes, my name is Simply Greg. I'm basically the founder and presenter of the Simply Greg show, which is basically all about elevating the mind and inspiring the community by spotlighting hidden gems in the community. And that's basically ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So basically on a weekly basis, I scour, the whole of London to discover people who've got interesting story and something that they've been able to overcome, to share that with the general audience and the general public, so that we can all feel inspired somehow to overcome our own personal challenges. So yeah, that's basically me, and that's what I do in terms of podcasting and radio. My experience with Dad's Unlimited has been a great experience so far, and I came across Dad's Unlimited on my journey towards deciding to do a bit of boxing. I mean, when it came near enough to the fight, I was wondering why exactly I decided to do it. I mean, no one favors getting knocked in the head with any punches, but
No.
I took on board a 10-week training camp, which at the end of it is to raise money and raise awareness for a charity. And my chosen charity was Dad's Unlimited.
Fantastic. I don't think it's unfair to say that usually people who support charitable causes that are very personal to them tend to have more energy and more effort, and arguably people are more prepared to stick themselves in a boxing ring and get punched in the face or whatever. So tell me before we came on air about your story and why this is very relevant and very personal to you as an individual. Just tell us what happened to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my personal experience, with Dad's Unlimited, or just as a father itself, I currently have a 9-year-old son, and my experience was a challenging one. When I didn't give birth to my son, but when my son was obviously born, because during that period of time, not only was it a challenging pregnancy that I went through and we went through with his mother, but the birth was also a difficult birth. And I believe, after giving birth, one of the challenges that we had to go through was postnatal depression with purpose psychosis, which, something I've never experienced before. And that was the first that I came to learn that, because we all kind of like, especially when you're expecting your first child, it's just like a dream, it's like, oh my goodness, everything will go well. And, you put it on Instagram, you're all having a great time, things like that. But it wasn't the case. And it was the first that I had experienced postnatal depression with purpose psychosis and even discover what it was. So unfortunately, due to the challenges with mental health, I had to be my son's primary carer, so I took care of him for 4 months or so of his the first term of his life, and that was my first experience in seeing the lack of support that dads get, because there wasn't any support systems around me to support me as a primary care, as a father, due to many of the support systems that are out there mostly geared towards mothers, as a natural kind of form of support, rather than the anomalies of the father being the primary carer. So because of that experience, I came to realize the necessity of providing support to fathers, to dads, especially when there is a disconnection in terms of communication with their child or with their family, and just being able to bridge the gap together and provide that wholesome support, whether it be financially, legally, and things like that, towards having a happy family. So that's why I felt Dad's Unlimited would be the best charity to partner with and go in the ring and get some punches for.
Well, that's a really personal story, and thanks for being so candid and sharing that, because I know it's not easy to share very personal stories, but I suspect that the story that you tell is probably not that unusual is the impression I'm starting to get. As we get
Mm.
more into discussing about male mental health as well, it's all kind of bundled in together. It does seem that as you allow men to start to talk about things and as you encourage them to talk about things, more and more stories come out like this. Is that something you've experienced?
Very true, very true. And I think, like, as you've alluded to, um, it's now becoming more normal for men to kind of feel like it's okay to talk and they can share. And one of the things I've even noticed about myself is that I've now become more emotionally literate and emotionally articulate in expressing my emotions. Otherwise, what happens is that we just keep it covered up and we hold it together and feel that it's not okay to kind of share it because you're trying to maintain this particular image. And one of the things, as I mentioned to you earlier on, that I notice is that when you hold everything together, it doesn't work because it only comes across and it breaks down somehow, and it causes you to have a breakdown in one way, shape, or form because you're holding a bit too much. And I remember, as I mentioned to you, not only did I have that experience with, obviously my child being born, but it's later on down the line also losing a child, which a lot of my friends and family was not aware of. Obviously, family was lost my second child, having to go through bereavement, at the same time as going to work and keeping the bills going or paying the bills because obviously my son's mum at that time was still under maternity. At the same time, whilst leasing a home that the landlords wanted, to take ownership back of to sell it, put me in a very difficult position where I did not really realize how much I was holding myself. And when you do finally also open up and speak to other parents or speak to other men, as you mentioned as well, you only get to hear how much everyone is actually going through when they do give you the chance and the opportunity to actually hear their heart. And, you see the similarities of what you're going through as well.
What do you think helped you most then? I mean, was it a case of practical help, financial help, what you might call, the real stuff
Mm.
versus the emotional support, or was it all of the above?
And that's a really good question as well, because it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken and the
Yeah.
egg. And I think it kind of works both well together in tandem. Being if you are providing that emotional support to someone, also have a practical application towards what they can do and how they can come out of that position. And I realized that a lot of the challenging situations that I've been through that I've overcome well is because both of them has worked in tandem together. Wherever I've had that support from, not only have they catered to my emotional needs and spoken to me and gone through counseling, but also given me the practical help and practical support of how I can, also put boundaries in place that help me ensure that I don't exacerbate myself, but I'm able to get the best out of myself and also have the right support systems around me as a practical tool towards a form of communication expression for help or support. And it doesn't make you weak to ask for help. Because when you don't, you only put yourself in a position where, you just get bogged down with so many different things that can just weigh you down.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. And there is this. I mean, I think we're moving towards a much more positive situation, but
Mm,
historically, it's men don't talk about these things, do they? It's stiff
that's
upper
it.
lip is one of the classics, isn't it? Do you remember a time when you just thought, I can't handle this anymore? What was it? I'm assuming, and please challenge me if I'm not right, but was it like
Mm.
building up almost like layers of more and more pressure, more and more issues? Do you ever remember a time, almost like a tipping point of I'm I'm losing it here, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you with that because as men, we think, especially because we're so logical, so practical, so solution orientated, we tend to feel that we've got this covered. Oh no, I'll handle that or I'll sort this out. And you don't really go out for help because you think that you are your own help, and then you don't realize that it's piling up in terms of you thought you handled it, you thought you got it covered, you thought you're on top of it, and it's like the last thing that just, you know, like they say, the last hay or whatever, you
Yeah, the
know,
tipping point. The tipping point. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
You know, that broke the camel's back, and it's
yeah.
kind of like sometimes the last thing is not even the biggest thing, but it's just like you've noticed that you've had enough, and enough is enough. And for myself, that's one of the experience that I realized, as you mentioned, in terms of me recalling to an experience. It was going through that whole experience of the difficulty with the pregnancy with my son, the challenge of, you know, obviously labor and, you know, giving birth to my son. Then after that, raising him up. And then after that, losing my second child. After that, going through obviously eviction. I noticed whilst grieving, and I hadn't been able to have a chance to grieve. Then you have to go into work and heed onto instructions and still perform at the best level, you know, come back home, but you're not really getting to rest because you're then supporting your son's mum by having care of your son. So it's like, I literally never had a chance to grieve, to rest, to, you know, to relax from work or anything like that. And then you go back to work the next day, and then you're back and forth with calls with the solicitors to handle this so that you, your child, and your son's mom don't get evicted. So I noticed that it was weighing heavy on me because I sat down. I remember sitting down and speaking to my son's mom and sharing and saying, you know, for her experience with mental health had been obviously back and forth, and I empathize with what she's been through. And I felt like for me, it was an experience of where, you know, it's felt like you're almost having a nightmare, but you're awake and you're being burnt, you know, with a lighter, but you're awake so you can feel every emotion because you're awake to the situation. And I remember expressing that, and that's when I noticed that, you know, I had so much that was weighing on me that had led me to that position, and seeing the lack of support within a social care system also just made me realize that I need to be in a position where I focus on dealing with my own grief, dealing with my own, you know, mental challenges as well.
Yeah, and I totally get that. So, so on a personal front, then, how did you
Mm.
get to get into the podcasting? Then, you know, how was it? Is it something you'd always wanted to do, or did you kind of fall into it, or had you always been thinking, "I quite like the idea of being on a sofa on the BBC morning show"? What were the drivers?
No, and absolutely no to all of that. I tell you now, Phil, trust me, I did not plan to go into radio. I didn't plan to go into podcasting. I did not plan to learn any of this. And I think they often say like it often happens best for those kind of individuals because for me, it's actually previously before I used to do a lot of public speaking. So after going through my own personal experience, I was a personal development coach. I had a business called New World Coaching, which enabled me to kind of support other individuals who are going through a challenging time to overcome their challenges, to reach a point of stability where they're stable within themselves and feeling whole in a mind, sound body, and emotions and so forth. So after going through that and having a bit of public speaking engagement, there was a lady who saw me there. She was like, "Greg, you're very articulate. You know, I love what you're obviously talking about, and I'd love to have you on my show." So I'm someone who likes to take a lot of responsibility on sharing my message and the impact I share with my message. And I remember, you know, contacting my photographer and my videographer and told them to come with me. We went all the way to Manchester, literally, to document the whole process. As soon as I went into the studio, it's almost like I came with my entourage and transformed the whole studio. So there was lighting on every angle, and there's cameras, 3 camera tripods, and you know, things like that. And she's just like, "Okay, wow, what's going on here?" And I remember, you know, that show vividly. I was talking about the vulnerability of walking in purpose, because you're only walk, you know, according to your purpose to the level of vulnerability that you're willing to be vulnerable with yourself, because you are who you are because of why you are the way you are. And when you embrace why you are, when you embrace why you are the way you are, it will now lead you towards what you do and a purpose that is aligned and assigned for you, because you speak the way you speak because there's a purpose for it. You look the way you look because there's a purpose for it. But if you don't embrace how you look, how you speak, how you talk, how you walk, you will never truly embrace your purpose, because your purpose is assigned to that vulnerable space of allowing yourself to accept my nose is the way it is, my eyes is the way it is, my face is the way it is. I can't do nothing about it. But maybe I was called to inspire other people in a similar position. And that's why I am someone who's supposed to work things out so I can elaborate it to other people in a way that's more concise for them to be able to overcome. So that's what I basically spoke about, the vulnerability of walking in purpose. You would only walk in your purpose to the level that you're able to walk in your own personal vulnerability. She loved that. It's a great show. We left that. She asked me to come on to another show, which was a different presenter. So all in one day. I've never been on radio before. I ended up being on 2 radio shows on the same day. The next day they texted me and said, how do you feel about having your own radio show? And I said, yeah, sure, I guess.
Why not?
What do you do? Yeah, exactly. Why not? Like, okay, but then I sat down and thought about it, and I was like, okay, once you go on radio, after you say, hi, Mom, I'm on radio, then what next? So I went back to my heart, and one of the things I've always wanted to do as a personal development coach, professionally and previously, it's to inspire other people first. So that's why I came up with the Simply Greg Show, which is all about elevating a mind, inspiring a community by spotlighting hidden gems in the community, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because one thing, no matter who you are, what you look like, what culture, what race, no matter where you come from, one thing we all have for sure is we all have either gone through a problem, overcoming a problem, or about to go into a problem. Either we've gone through a problem, overcome a problem, or about to go through a problem. These are 3 things as all of us as human beings can relate to. So that's why it's about speaking to someone who's overcome a challenge, because either you as a listener are about to go through that challenge, or you as a listener is going through that challenge, or you as a listener has overcome that problem. And that's how I was able to unite everyone through my topical discussions.
Yeah, I just think that's a wonderful, wonderful way of putting it. I mean, in your experience then, how much of this, if any, is talked about in schools?
I don't think much of it has been. Obviously, there's a lot more being done at the present moment, but I don't think much has been done to prepare children. I think a lot of the times what we are doing is firefighting and addressing issues when it's far later down the line, instead of also letting them know that things are not always a dream. We understand that we're here to prepare you towards your aspirations and your dreams, but the world isn't always going to, look so pretty. And the reason why I say that is because it would help us also prepare, for the downfalls, for the challenges, because that's where a lot of, depression happens, because it's unmet expectations, that you was really holding on to, or triggers and traumas being, evoked, which leaves us in a downward spiral. And I think, as we all know, many things at the present moment is not actually within the school systems. As if it was, then we would know about taxations, we'll know about how to handle money and finances. And so is the necessity. I've always said it. One thing about us all as human beings is that unless you're wanting to live in an island somewhere, relationships is key. So there isn't any form of lessons that teach us about how to relate with one another just as human beings, when that's a primary thing that is necessary as a human being within this world. You need to know how to relate with one another, how to be your brother's keeper, how to, friends. Why isn't there such a lesson? Why isn't there such support systems to help us understand relationships well, to help us understand how to deal with life a bit better? And I guess these are something of which why I'm so and fanatic and emphatic about families, is because I believe that whatever isn't necessarily, provided in the schools should be provided within a home. And the home is the primary educational environment and facility. And it's about building the right resources and the right infrastructures and support systems within a home. And that's why the home for me is so important. Why to deal with Dads Unlimited? Because looking at the statistics of, many children who get themselves in trouble, ended up being incarcerated in prison, it's because of the fact that they haven't had the presence of a father in their life. And you can actually check it out the other way around, which is interesting. A single parent father is able to actually help a child have the same level of result as if it was a two-parent family compared to when it's a single parent mother.
Wow.
Which I wasn't even aware of. Exactly. Crazy. Yeah. But then not having the father around, we see all the damage that's going on in society at the present moment. So that is a pinnacle aspect within a nuclear family. And that's why I'm so emphatic about the presence and necessity of having a dad around, because the dad's not around, the support systems are not around to support the dad. Mental health is high for men. Suicide rate is high for men. Why do you think? Because there's a lack of support system in place, and all the support is being geared towards single parent mothers or family setups without the father's existence.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. You're clearly extremely passionate about it, and it just comes out of every pore in your body, which is really fantastic. Is there anybody, a book or a person that has inspired you or given you some kind of insight into this whole area that you're so passionate about?
I mean, I'd have to go all the way back. For me, I started off listening to Les Brown, motivational speaker, first and foremost. Then, I've listened to many other motivational speakers after that, and many other books that I've also read that has allowed me to get into a personal development zone. Some of them here I've got is, let's see, so you're always ready. I've got Laws of Leadership, and that is John C. Maxwell. That's a book I've read on as well. What other things have I read? And
I'm very impressed because I didn't tell you any of these questions I was going to ask you. I just threw you straight into it, and there you are with your actual book there already.
Exactly. So that's literally me. I've because the thing is, it's like whatever you're going through, there's someone who's already been through that and put it in a book for you, or put in some form of media out there. If you go and discover it, you'll find that your situation is no different to someone else. I mean, we're going into 2024, which means life has existed way before you. Like, there's people, like, there's nothing new under the earth. Life has existed before you. Whatever it is you want to do, overcoming a challenge, overcoming mental health, overcoming the difficulties within your family setting. There is a book out there. There is a podcast out there, like what we're doing. There is some form of multimedia out there for you to consume to help you through. And it's how determined are you to go through that process. And I think for me, one of the first things that changed is, obviously for me, I became someone who learned a lot more about this person called Jesus. And I was like, wow, this is interesting, and that was my first example, as I saw, of being the best human being I can be, in the world, in helping other people, being kind, being good to other people, which was a good inspiration for me as well.
Well, to be honest, a good inspiration for everybody. And if I can just say, I guess, congratulations and thank you for what you're doing and all the work that you do. I think it's desperately needed in the world. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. How do people get hold of you then, Greg? Have you got email address or contact information people could speak to you through?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they can all, find me on social media. Very simple. You can just put Simply Greg. You'll find me on Simply Greg on Instagram. Simply Greg Official. And yeah, if you want to listen to the show, it's called the Simply Greg Show. You can go online and listen to it, or go on YouTube at any point of time as well. And for anyone who wants to you know, book me for speaking, you can always contact me at info@simplygregshow.com, and I'll be available obviously for speaking gigs as well as interviews as well.
Absolutely wonderful. I hope people do that. And just to clarify, it's Simply Greg, not Simply Greg's. You're not going to get a sausage roll and a pasty if you go to Simply Greg's. Simply Greg's is a whole different thing altogether.
Exactly. And it's Greg with a 1G, not a double G, because everyone keeps thinking Greg's with the, you know.
Yeah, I know. We're all brainwashed, Greg. That's the problem. Hey, listen, we're not here to enjoy ourselves. Behave yourself. Anyway, seriously, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. It's been an absolute joy interviewing you, sir. And very, 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 have a very, very Merry Christmas. We're recording this just before Christmas 2023. And again, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute inspiration to hear you talk, and I hope people will reach out. And I suppose the message is exactly that, isn't it? Whether you're male or female, or of any gender or any creed or whatever, reach out and get the help that you need. And it's okay to reach out, and it's okay to talk to people about your challenges. And it's normal, I guess, is the other thing. Common. Thanks, Greg, and I will catch you again soon. But thanks for joining me today on Dads Unlimited, and thanks for the work you do for dads as well.